Hello, this is Father Simeon Gallagher once again joining you for a simple word, a wonderful collection of programs that come to you from our Capuchin website. And the purpose of these little get-togethers is to give a little bit of a homily or an extended reflection on the text that you will be listening to in the coming Sunday, so that there is a kind of disposition present in your minds and hearts to be open to what the Word of God might be saying to you. We interrupt the numbered Sundays in this particular feast. This would be ordinarily the 24th Sunday in ordinary time, but it's the Exaltation of the Cross. A beautiful feast day. Next week we would pick up the numbered Sundays once again. But we this weekend stop and think about the significance of the crucifixion of Jesus and its place within the context of some interesting readings, and you will be hearing those on Sunday. I'm recording this morning from a retreat house, Mount Alvernia Retreat House, which is north of New York City by a couple of hours. And I think it's at the beginning of the Hudson Valley. So it's really quite lovely. Through these windows that you see behind me, you can begin to see the trees already beginning to change in the fall coolness and the crispness of the early autumn weather. So it's a perfect place to be for this kind of an experience. And I am giving this retreat this week to the friars, to the Capuchin friars from several provinces, St. Mary's province, which is New York and New England, and also some friars from the New Jersey province. This is the province of the Stigmata. And there are some other visitors also, some friars who've come in from Rome to make this retreat with us. The readings are poignant for self-confrontation, especially in facing the realities of our life that we'd rather not face. The first reading is from the book of Numbers, and it's an event where several days after God has been so good to the people, feeding them and leading them and guiding them into the desert, they are grumbling and complaining to God and to Moses about the lack of proper food as they would see it and the lack of water. And God hears their grumbling and their complaining. He eventually, of course, does take care of them, but he does something before that. He presents them with a confrontation, snakes who are symbolic, I suppose, of their griping, their whining, and their complaining. And these snakes begin to bite them, as you will hear in the book of Numbers. And some of them actually die from the snake bites. They suddenly have the realization that maybe they shouldn't be complaining. And they go to Moses and say, please tell God to remove these from us. And indeed, he does. Jesus cross-references this experience in the gospel from St. John this morning because he says, actually Moses was told to put one of these snakes on a pole and lift it up, and anyone who looked at the snake on the pole would be cured and healed. I'm sure you are aware that this is a symbol of the medical profession, where you see a pole with a snake. This is where that example comes from in the scriptures. If they look at this snake hanging from a pole, they will be cured and healed and not bitten. So what are we being told here? Because the cross-reference in the gospel is Jesus saying, unless the Son of Man is lifted up and you look at him and recognize that he is the manifestation of the love of God in your life, in your midst, you will not be saved. It's interesting because it's the Old Testament, and everything in the Old Testament is a prefigurement of what happens in the New Testament, and this is the classic example of this. And Jesus is, of course, in his cross, exalted and lifted up. And when we look at him on the cross, like the cross of St. Damien, which is behind me on the wall, this is a source of life change. This is a source of an image of the challenge to grow and to develop out of our griping and out of our complaining. St. Francis was lost and confused and wandering and trying to find himself when this image of Christ on the cross at St. Damien Chapel spoke to him and said, "You must reform the church, you must change the church, and I'm sending you to do that, to accomplish that." What is behind all of this if it's not a confrontation with the reality of our lives? We have this collection of things in the world of psychology called ego defense mechanisms. These are the way we deny the reality that is facing us in our lives and in our human nature. These are the things that we grab a hold of to evade responsibility and accountability. We place that one of these ego defense mechanisms is already present in the Garden of Eden at the beginning of creation, when Adam and Eve eat the fruit of the tree in the center of the garden and move themselves and all humanity from the state of original blessing over into the state of original sin. And God says to them as he comes to visit them at the end of that day, "Why have you done what I told you not to do?" And Adam, unwilling to accept personal responsibility, says, "The woman made me do it," passing that ego defense mechanism of rejection, and says the same thing to Eve, "Why did you do it?" And she does the same thing. She blames the serpent. She blames the snake. "The serpent, the devil made me do it," she says. So these texts remind us that we are all confronted with the reality of our lowell nature. These ego defense mechanisms that we use to not want to buy and accept responsibility for our lulls and therefore not face into the reality of the need to look on Christ, to return to the reality of God the Father's love in our lives. These ego defense mechanisms excuse us, and excuse us, and in the end we have to come back to that reality anyhow. These texts this particular weekend confront us with the shenanigans that we often get ourselves involved in, where we don't want to accept what we've done, and so we blame other people, we project onto other people, we deny through the ego defense mechanism of denial. "I couldn't possibly have done that." We accept responsibility, and that responsibility is a personal kind of crucifixion, and it's painful to have to face the reality and the truth of our lives. But unless we look at Jesus and see him as the manifestation of the Father's mercy and the Father's love and the Father's forgiveness, we become lost in our own confusion, and we never face into reality and accept the responsibilities of our lives. Listen, please, to these texts this weekend from this particular point of view. These are texts of self-confrontation and the way out of the things that we have done, the behavior patterns that we now acknowledge in our adulthood we should never have done. The way out is to recognize God forgives us, God's mercy is always available to us, and that we must embrace him. The exaltation of the cross is our salvation, like the exaltation of the pole with the snake on it was the source of healing for the ancient griping, whining, and complaining Israelites. We are grateful to God that he has saved us from ourselves, and he died on the cross in order to accomplish that. I love the one quote from St. Catherine of Siena: "It was not nails that kept Jesus affixed to the cross, what kept him affixed to the cross, was love. Love of the Father and love of each of us, challenging us to love one another. Let us take all of this into consideration as we listen to these passages in the coming weekend. We are praying for you, and you can count on that. And our hopes are that you're praying for us, and we can count on you. God bless you, and I'll see you the next time around.